night holds secrets you were never meant to know. But what happens when a game, a simple, innocent game, becomes a doorway into something far older, far darker than your imagination allows? Listen closely, because by the end of tonight, you will realize that the world around you has layers, layers that hide intentions you've never suspected. You will see the thin veil between play and peril, between safety and the kind of fear that roots itself in your very bones. I was 15 when it started, a Friday in late September. The air was crisp, a subtle bite to it, hinting at the coming winter. My parents were gone for the night, leaving the house empty. Just me, alone, I thought, until Chris, my neighbor, my best friend, came over. We were like every other pair of teenage boys, reckless, curious, hungry for boredom to become adventure. The basement was our usual haven, but that night it seemed too small, too familiar. Chris suggested hide and seek. Dumb, right? But I agreed. The darkness made everything different, made the walls of the house stretch into corners unseen, hiding possibilities you could never calculate. We made the rules simple: no going outside, no attics, no crawl spaces. Bedrooms, closets, under furniture, the ordinary became extraordinary under the shadows. I counted first, eyes closed, heart thundering against my ribs. I heard him run, footsteps fading, silence falling. By the time I finished, the house had already changed. Every creak, every sigh of the floorboards seemed purposeful, as if the house itself was aware, watching, waiting. I searched the kitchen, then the hallways, the bathrooms, the basement. Nothing. And then, somewhere behind stacked boxes, Chris appeared, smiling, innocent. But that smile, something about it lingered too long, like the house had allowed him to be found, but something else had not. When it was my turn, I hid under the guest bed, and then I heard it. Footsteps, deliberate, heavy, yet not belonging to anyone playing the game. The sound came closer, around me, and then it stopped. I held my breath, frozen, feeling eyes I could not see. Chris called the game over, but the silence stayed. Something else was here, moving, watching. And when I finally emerged, I realized the house had shifted, had breathed a different air, a different hunger. It was no longer a game. It was an initiation, a warning. And that night, the first lesson became clear. The world around you, the familiar spaces you inhabit, they are never as empty as they appear. Shadows are patient. They wait. And some games are not meant to end. The night stretched long, thick, and heavy, pressing against the walls, crawling through the floorboards, filling every corner of the house. You think you know your home. You think it's safe. But let me tell you this: safety is an illusion, and familiarity is often the bait that draws something far older and smarter than you ever imagined. After the first round, I thought we were done, but the house didn't agree. The creaks of the floorboards became deliberate, slow, like someone pacing just beyond the edge of vision. I slid under the guest bed, pulling the skirt down around me, trying to disappear, trying to believe the game was still just a game. Chris came up the stairs, slow, careful. Every step he took echoed, and then silence. Long, heavy silence, too heavy for a 15-year-old to carry alone. I held my breath. His shoes shuffled against the carpet. Nothing else moved, nothing else breathed. And then he left, just walked away, out of the room, out of my immediate perception. My pulse hammered in my ears, my body screamed to run, but my mind froze, mesmerized by the unnatural quiet that followed. When I finally dared to crawl out, the living room was empty, the kitchen empty, the basement door. I froze. A voice came from below, Chris's voice, calling that he was still looking for me. But that made no sense. He had just been upstairs. Panic began to creep in, curling around my lungs, coiling in my stomach. I moved slowly, every nerve alert, every sense screaming. When I finally reached the basement, it was empty. The air was colder down there, stagnant, almost waiting. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching longer than they should. The feeling of being watched intensified. Not by Chris, not by any of my friends. Something else was there, something patient. We tried to shrug it off. We switched, played another round, but I couldn't shake it. Every step, every creak felt like a warning. Every sound outside, every whisper of wind through the trees became a threat. And then the house spoke in its own way, a loud thump from upstairs, something heavy falling, followed by the slow, unmistakable sound of someone walking across the first floor. Not our feet, not ours. Someone else was moving inside my home. I realized then that the game had never been about hide and seek. It was about revealing the invisible, about showing that even in the places we trust the most, there are presences we cannot explain, cannot predict, cannot control. And the most terrifying lesson of all, that presence doesn't have to show itself fully to have power. Just being unseen, just being near, is enough to teach fear. By the time we escaped to Chris's house, running as fast as 15-year-old legs could carry us, I understood the deeper truth. There are things that watch. There are forces that move silently through the spaces we occupy, waiting for us to believe we are alone. And once you know they exist, the world you thought you understood is forever changed. The second story begins far from the safety of walls and lights, in a neighborhood that backed directly into a dense stretch of woods. As children, we thought we owned those spaces, the backyards, the edges of the trees, the narrow trails where sunlight barely touched the forest floor. That night, like many others, we were drawn to the dark, to the thrill of the unknown. Hide and seek became more than a game. It became a test. How far could you push your courage before something pushed back? We were 5 that night. Me, Tyler, his little brother Matt, and 2 kids from down the street, Jason and Eric. The game started like any other, scattered through the tall grass and shadowed trees. The air was thick with heat and humidity, yet the darkness carried its own chill, creeping under the skin. The moment I stepped past the first row of trees, the world shifted. Daylight had retreated, leaving behind shapes and shadows that had no right to exist. Every rustle of leaves was amplified, every snapping twig a heartbeat in the forest's chest. I found a hiding spot behind a fallen log, pressed my body low and waited. Jason's counting faded, leaving a silence so complete it seemed alive. Then I heard it. The footsteps. Soft at first, tentative, brushing against the leaves. I thought it was Jason, but the rhythm was wrong. Heavier, deliberate. My pulse hit my ears, each beat louder than the last. The figure paused just beyond my line of sight, and then nothing. Not a word, not a whisper, just the sensation that something was watching, calculating, waiting. I froze, reminding myself that if I moved, I would lose, and yet my mind raced. Each step the figure took was measured, patient, like it knew I was there without me giving anything away. Time became meaningless. The forest stretched infinitely around me, shadows pooling into shapes my eyes couldn't parse. Finally, the steps continued, moving deeper into the woods, away from me, but the unease stayed, heavy in my chest. When I returned to the group, I noticed a subtle shift. Matt mentioned seeing a tall man standing in the woods, unmoving, watching. Jason dismissed it, laughing it off, but the pit in my stomach told me the truth. We were not alone, and whatever was there had been with us the entire time. A silent predator that needed no weapon, no disguise, only patience and intent. From that moment, hide and seek was no longer a game. It was an awakening. It revealed how easily fear could be real, how quickly the familiar could become foreign. The forest, once a playground, had become a mirror to something primal, a reminder that there are forces that observe, manipulate, and wait for the slightest lapse in vigilance. And once you've seen that shadow, once you've felt its presence, nothing in the world feels completely safe again. The night stretched on, and the woods seemed to breathe around us. Every laugh, every movement felt fragile, like a thin veil over something ancient and patient. I had hidden near the edge of the forest, crouched low in tall grass, my ears straining for any sound that might betray the figure's presence. Then I heard it, a whisper, soft, almost imperceptible, curling around the trees like smoke. The words didn't form, but the tone was deliberate, precise, as if someone or something knew exactly what I was thinking. My body froze. My mind screamed to run, to call out, to break the rules of the game, but a deeper part of me, the part that always senses danger before it strikes, told me to stay still. The whisper came again, closer this time, slipping through the brush like liquid shadow. I could feel the heat of its attention, a heavy awareness that pressed against the skin. Not human, not entirely. My imagination, I tried to tell myself, yet my instincts screamed otherwise. From behind me, Jason's voice broke the tension, calling that the round was over. Relief should have washed over me, but it didn't. I rose slowly, scanning the woods, but the figure was gone, yet the echo of presence lingered. Matt told us he had seen it too, a tall man, unmoving, observing. None of us could shake the image. Even in daylight, the memory etched itself into our minds like a scar. Shadows became ambiguous. Every tree, every fold of darkness suggested eyes watching, always watching. We returned home, but the unease didn't leave. Sleep was elusive. Every creak, every brush against the window pane seemed amplified. Even the safety of our rooms couldn't block the knowledge that we had been seen, that someone or something had chosen to reveal itself only partially, keeping the rest hidden, a predator teasing its prey. And with each passing day, the story of that night expanded in our minds, the whisper growing louder in memory, the footsteps heavier, the figure taller. There is a truth here that most ignore. Fear isn't just a reaction, it's a signal, a warning from something deeper, something older than us, designed to test our awareness, our vigilance. That night, hide and seek had become a lesson in perception, in the fragility of safety,
and in the existence of forces beyond comprehension. Once the veil is lifted, it cannot be lowered again. And here, dear viewer, pause for a moment. Comment below, "I see what hides in the shadows." Say it twice. This is not just engagement, it is an acknowledgement, a ritual to lock in your awareness, your willingness to witness what most refuse to confront. It changes nothing externally, but everything internally. You are no longer just a passive observer. You have opened your eyes.
The final story begins on a hot July afternoon in rural Pennsylvania, where open fields and dense trees mask both innocence and danger. I was 14, and my friends and I had claimed every inch of the yard for our games. That day, a stranger appeared, Keith. He was older, taller, and carried an air that didn't quite belong to this place. At first, we shrugged him off as just a kid passing by, but then he suggested manhunt. My gut twisted. How did he know every corner, every hiding spot? The question lingered as we ran across the yard, hearts racing, bodies darting between trees and grass. I ran toward the old storage shed at the edge of the property. Its wood smelled of gasoline, a pungent, toxic scent that clung to the air. I hid under tarps, pulling them over myself, trying to breathe silently. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The forest, the yard, the sun, everything slowed down, warped, and amplified every creak of wood, every whisper of wind. Then the shed door moved, and Adam's face appeared, grinning as if nothing unusual had happened. I exhaled, shaking, but something told me the game had changed. We regrouped, but Keith was missing. At first, we thought he wandered off, but instinct told me otherwise. When the sun dipped, I noticed a rope near my window, a coarse, weathered cord that had not been there before. My pulse thumped. Keith. My mind raced with the possibilities. Had he entered the house while we were distracted? Was he still here? Every shadow in my room stretched long and threatening. That night, sleep was impossible. The scratching came first, slow, deliberate, at the window. Then came the unmistakable outline of a figure just beyond the blinds, inches from my face. Fear grounded me to the floor, yet clarity emerged. This was not a mere prank, not a child's game. Keith was a manifestation of intent, a presence with patience and calculation. My dad's shotgun and the piercing cracks of gunfire against the night broke the spell, yet the dread didn't leave. Keith vanished, but his mark lingered. The rope, the whisper, the unshakable sensation of being watched. Every door locked, every window secured, but the house no longer felt safe. Safety is a myth. Awareness is the only protection. This is the dark truth, the one most refuse to accept. The world contains entities, individuals, forces that exist precisely at the edge of comprehension. They exploit curiosity, manipulate perception, and teach lessons through fear. Games, houses, forests, they become arenas where the unprepared are exposed. You, watching now, are learning what few ever see. Awareness, once awakened, is a dangerous gift. If you understand this, acknowledge it. Comment below, "I am awake to the unseen," twice. This is more than a ritual. It is the first step into a reality most never dare to confront, where every shadow may hold intent, and every quiet night is an invitation to awaken fully or remain ignorant at your own peril. After that night, the world felt heavier, darker, yet sharper. Every creak of a floorboard, every whisper of wind through the trees became a language I had to learn. I wasn't imagining things. My mind had been forced to recognize patterns others ignored. The way Keith appeared, vanished, and left traces was a lesson in perception, patience, and unseen control. This is the edge most refuse to acknowledge. The ordinary is never as it seems. Every ordinary backyard, every familiar home is a potential stage for forces that manipulate without leaving proof. Paranoia settled in first. Not the irrational kind, but the precise, calculated awareness that something could be anywhere, waiting. When I closed my eyes at night, the rope still lingered in my mind. Not as a rope, but as a symbol of intrusion, of knowledge I wasn't supposed to possess. The whispering, the unseen footsteps, the watching figure, they were no longer just memories, they were warnings. A warning that the world is layered, and most humans live in only one shallow layer, blind to the deeper currents of danger, manipulation, and intent. Even my friends changed. They laughed, they tried to forget, but subtle fear crept into their behaviors. It was there in the way they glanced over their shoulders, the hesitations when the night fell, the unspoken understanding that some presences are not governed by ordinary rules. Keith, or whatever he represented, was a teacher in darkness, and like all teachers of true danger, he demanded vigilance, not reassurance. Now think about your own life. How many times have you dismissed a subtle warning, ignored a fleeting sense of wrongness? What if, in those moments, forces you cannot see were watching, waiting, learning? What if the safe reality you cling to is merely a mask, a temporary shield against truths too heavy for the unprepared? The game of hide and seek isn't just for children. It is a metaphor, a template for how the hidden manipulates, observes, and exploits human curiosity. And those who see too late pay the cost in fear, trauma, or worse. Understand this. Fear is not weakness. It is the mind's signal to recognize boundaries, to see beyond what is presented. And if you are feeling the weight of this knowledge now, it is no accident. You were never meant to witness it, yet here you are. And that means something. It means the doors to hidden truths are opening for you. But stepping through them changes you irrevocably. If you hear me, repeat it aloud or write it in the comments below. I see what others ignore. Twice. This is your first real step into a world of truths hidden in plain sight, a world where knowledge is power and ignorance is the costliest mistake. I felt my heart pounding as the house stayed silent, but something told me it wasn't empty. The basement door creaked open, slow and deliberate, as if something or someone was moving just beyond sight. Chris and I exchanged a look, frozen in a mix of fear and disbelief. We both knew the rules of the game didn't apply anymore. This wasn't hide and seek. This was survival. I grabbed the fireplace poker, my hands trembling, every creak of the stairs a hammer to my chest. We slowly ascended, listening to the faintest whispers of movement. Upstairs, the guest room door, left cracked open just minutes before, was now closed.
The house seemed to breathe, shadows twisting in corners. I pushed the door, heart racing, and found only emptiness. The closet door hung half open, yet nothing stirred inside. For a moment, relief threatened to take hold, but it was false. From somewhere in the darkness, I heard the softest drag, fabric scraping across the carpet. Chris's whispered, "We need to leave." But curiosity, or maybe terror itself, kept us rooted. My pulse screamed in my ears as I edged closer. The sound stopped. Silence. The kind of silence that presses down on your chest, suffocates your courage. We couldn't see it, but we both knew someone had been inside. Someone had been playing too, waiting, watching, unseen. Every step we took afterward was haunted by that presence, every shadow a potential threat. The house, once familiar, had become a labyrinth of fear. We ran. Out the back door, across the yard, hearts hammering, until we reached the safety of Chris's house. The front door closed behind us like a barrier against the unknown. Police searched, checked every corner of the house, but found nothing. Yet we knew the truth. Something had been there, something intelligent, patient, and unseen. That night changed us forever. Hide and seek was no longer a game. The creak of the floorboards, the whispering in the darkness, the dragging noise, it all lingered in our minds, a permanent echo of fear. We never played again, never dared to enter the basement alone, and never fully trusted the quiet of our own home. The lesson was clear. Some games aren't meant to end. Some players are invisible, relentless, and patient. And once you've glimpsed that hidden world, you cannot forget it. That night taught me that fear is not a story you tell, it's a reality you survive. The house had shown us its secret, and we would carry it forever.